We know that 777 deadline is fast approaching for the club, Pete. Could that deadline be extended again potentially for the takeover to happen, or do you think this deal is just not going to go ahead?
I hope it doesn't get extended. I'm fed up talking about it, really. 7-7 Partners. It's been a farce, really, the whole thing. Yeah, as I said, I'm sticking to my guns. I've said this deal wasn't going to happen from the start, and I don't think it's going to change overnight now as well. I think Everton need to pull the plug on these talks with 7-7 Partners, because it's just been scaremongering ever since, and horror stories that the fans are hearing of their other ownerships that they've got with football clubs and other sports clubs as well. There's been other businesses that 7-7 Partners are involved in which have gone to the wall as well. So yeah, for Everton right now, they just need to move on, look for potential new investors, new owners, and encouraging news coming out that John Textor, the American businessman who has shareholding in Crystal Palace and also Lyon in France, he has admitted that he would be interested in buying Everton. Again, it's not very straightforward because he has to sell his stake in Crystal Palace first before he can do that due to the rules and regulations. So that's not going to be easy to get that organised in time. But yeah, I think Everton, they will have potential owners, investors in the background lined up just in case this 7-7 Partners deal was never going to happen as well. But I think it's a running against the clock right now for Everton, because they need something sorted as soon as possible, because they can't be going into next season with all this hanging over them again, because they've had such a difficult time of juggling all this since I think it was last September when Farhad Moshiri agreed to sell his stake to 7-7 Partners, and just look how long it's dragged on with so much uncertainty and speculation going on. It does no one any good. And for Everton, heading into their final season at Goodison Park before they move into their new all fancy Bramley Moors Dock Stadium, they got to get their ship in order and sort out their finances. But otherwise, it could be a critical time for the club.
Pete, where does it leave them? I mean, where does it with the, obviously we know that they've loaned money off 7-7 Partners with the view to completing a takeover, and that obviously coming off the price of a takeover. So potentially a new investor comes in and the 7-7 partnership move aside, the money that the club have borrowed from them, does that then fall into the new deal for the new investor? Do they have to carry that debt, or is that between the club? Does that have to be sorted before the investor comes in?
I'd imagine a deal could be agreed to add that on to the price of the club, I suppose, and everything. But 7-7 Partners could call in that debt and say, look, we want our money repaid. And if that's not repaid, there'll be fears then of potential administration or something like that, which would be a disaster for the club, because then you would see sellable assets going for really low prices as well. So yeah, it's just so much uncertainty, Paul, around the whole Everton situation. As I said, John Textor's come out and admitted that he'd be interested in buying, but he's got other issues to sort before he can do that as well. And yeah, I think obviously Farhad Moshiri's had the 7-7 Partners sort of backing him up right now and keeping the club afloat by giving him these loans to pay for the uptake of the club as well. So if nothing can be found in the meantime, you've got that £200 million loan that will need repaying, and if there's not anybody willing to come in and pay that as well as the price for the club as well, it leaves all sorts of question marks of the long-term sort of future of Everton.
And talking of some of the long-term futures of the players, Pete, we know one name we discussed on the pod before, Jarrett Branthwaite, has been subject to interest from various clubs. Where is he most likely to end up if he's to leave Goodison Park this summer? And what sort of valuation are we talking for the defender?
If he is to leave Goodison this summer, I think Manchester United are in the box seat to sign him. They've been the ones pushing and making overtures to try and lure Branthwaite to Old Trafford as well. It looks like he's a top target for Ineos. They see him as a long-term answer to their defensive problems, but they're trying to get him on the cheap. They're looking at around £40 million mark, which doesn't get anywhere near Everton's valuation of Branthwaite right now. They're probably around the £60 to £70 million mark for the centre-back as well. So there'll be a lot of to and fro, I think, in the transfer window regards Jarrett Branthwaite. Everton desperate to keep hold of him, as we've previously mentioned. They want to keep hold of him for at least another season, and then maybe cash in on Amadou Onana to a potential buyer, and then that the transfer fee from his exit would go a long way to balance the books, which would allow them to keep Branthwaite as well. But yeah, I'm sure Manchester United are actively monitoring that situation at Goodison Park, seeing what's going on with potential exits of players and also the potential takeover as well, because if that takeover doesn't happen, it could mean that the club could have no other option but maybe they cash in on Brantford as well as Onana.
And Paul, one name to mention, former Leeds man Kalvin Phillips. He's been linked with a move to Goodison potentially. Do you think he'd be a good fit for the club? And actually, is that the sort of player they need to sign going into next season to strengthen that midfield and to really secure their place in the Premier League for when they move into the new stadium?
Listen, it'd be a great sign if they can get it done and get it over the line. Calvin's a great player. We know the type of person that he is. He's a great lad. He works hard on and off the field. He's been very, very unfortunate in his move to West Ham. It just hasn't worked. I was absolutely certain that was a perfect move for him under David Moyes to reignite not just his club career but his international career, that he'd go to the Euros. And listen, it's been a really disappointing 6 months for him. He's got to get himself back on track. But whoever signs Kalvin Phillips next year, I'm certain we'll get a player who's not just keen to prove that he is a Premiership player, a top-level Premiership player, but wanting to get back into that England setup as well. Listen, it's not long ago that he was named England's Player of the Year. You don't become a bad player overnight. He's a quality player, and he's a quality addition to the dressing room. If Everton can pull off a signing like that, it would be a huge coup for them. It would strengthen what they've got. He goes straight into the starting 11, and if they can get player deals done like that, and that's where Sean Dyche comes into it. That's where his man management comes in, and that's where his ability to have relationships with players and deal with players. You've seen what he's done with players at Burnley and at Everton. The way that he's man managed players, he's got the best out of players. Sometimes older players towards the end of the career, but actually he's managed to rejuvenate players' careers. And I think a manager, in the same way as I was maybe wrong about David Moyes and Kalvin Phillips because it didn't work for him there, but a manager like Sean Dyche who will man manage him in the right way. He'll put his arm around him. He'll look after him. He'll give him what he needs. He's the type of manager that could get Kalvin Phillips back to the top of his game. For Everton and for Everton fans, it'd be a really exciting signing. I just hope that if it is somebody that they're looking at financially, they can pull it off.
You've just watched a segment from Football Insider's brand new podcast, The Inside Track, with me, Lewis Pearce, alongside the guests on the show. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please do give the video a like, comment your thoughts on the topic, and feel free to share on your social media pages. If you want to listen to the full podcast episode, click the link in the description below. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty more content and exclusives here on The Inside Track.